Hello and welcome to Barcelona. We're speaking at the end of the third and final day, the first pre-season test of Formula 1 2020. I'm Alex Kalinauckas, Autosport's Grand Prix editor. With me is Jon Noble, Motorsport.com F1 editor, and Luke Smith, Autosport's F1 reporter. And here on the last day, Mercedes ended the test well on top. Valtteri Bottas set a lap time of 1 minute 15.723, and that's put him well clear of Sebastian Vettel's best time from 2019 testing already. After only 3 days, Vettel had 8 to do that. So, Jon, Luke, Mercedes are well clear. That's what we learned today, right?
I think so. I mean, it's been an incredible week. I mean, they grabbed the headlines yesterday. The DAS system, got everyone intrigued. Rival teams are looking at it. They've taken the lead on innovation, and the car looks solid. There doesn't seem to be any vices with it. Car seems good on the kind of the high-speed run, the low fuel runs. For what we're seeing, long stuff looks good. Ferrari looks a bit on the back foot. Red Bull we've not already seen yet, but I think no doubts that Mercedes are number one at the moment.
Now, Lewis Hamilton took over for the afternoon here on the final day. He did a few performance runs as well as Bottas did in the morning, but he seems to be struggling a little bit in the final sector. Was that just, you think, maybe a few hints that not everything's perfect at Mercedes, but certainly as good as they want it to be anyway?
Yeah, I think it's always going to be sort of room for improvement. It's only the first week of testing, so he can definitely, I think, work a little bit more to find a bit more performance from the car. But I mean, both drivers were fairly evenly matched when they went for their final C5 runs and really pushed for it. It was just that sloppy final sector that cost Lewis a little bit on his quickest lap. But I wouldn't read too much into it, to be honest. I think they're looking well clear at the moment.
Now for Mercedes, what a turnaround from a year ago. Everyone was like, what's gone wrong for Mercedes? The new car's come, it's not working. Ferrari are well clear. Mercedes altered their testing approach for this season. They said already we're not going to be reintroducing a new car for Australia or the second test as they did last year.
I think that's probably a legacy of what's coming for 2021. Teams are having to juggle the 2020 development. They're very mindful that if they start too late on 21, they're going to be behind next year. So there's no point messing around. Teams have front-loaded development this year. They want to try and do the same amount of years development, but in a much shorter span. So I think we're going to see a really heavy development rate. I expect we'll see a lot of updates next week. First race, second race, third race. Things are going to come pretty quick. And I think as soon as a team sees an opportunity to turn off 2020, they'll be jumping straight onto 21.
Now, the other big story to come out of the paddock today concerns Ferrari, Mercedes' closest challenger for the last few years. But team principal Mattia Binotto did a press conference where he said the others are faster than us. He's not optimistic as he was at this stage last year. Jon, you asked him what the general feeling was, how things were, how he assessed it, and he said that we've not been focused on setup or performance, but it's pretty damning there from Mattia.
Yeah, I thought it was quite an interesting admission from him. They've been clear it's been a different testing approach this year. Last year it was smooth and easy for them. They hit the ground running here, quickest on throughout the 3 days, and went to Melbourne's favourites. It didn't happen. This year they're trying to understand the car. They want a car that's better able to cope with different types of circuits, is more open on setup. So they focused, especially this week, on that car. But even so, I think that there's words from Mattia that they're a bit behind. I think in reality they think Mercedes are ahead, maybe Red Bull too. But he's not giving up on the championship. He was very clear that we aren't going to be the Mercedes beater in Melbourne, but don't rule us out as the Mercedes beater over the course of the season.
Absolutely, and he has a long season. He said possibly still 22 races. You never know what's going to happen with China. Now, Luke, you were at the Charles Leclerc press conference with me on Wednesday night. Do you think what Binotto said today ties into Leclerc's overall feeling? He certainly wasn't giving anything away, but he wasn't positive either.
Yeah, he was quite understated, I thought, in what he was saying. But again, he was looking back on last year and saying that they didn't want to jump the gun too soon or be too confident or overly proud of what they're doing here in testing, because it is only testing, as we're told time and time again. I think Ferrari, they know that last year they did maybe hype things up a little bit too much, get a bit too overexcited. This time around, I think, they've kept their cards very, very close to their chest. Next week, I think we'll probably see a little bit more from them in terms of what they can really do. Maybe take a step close to Mercedes, hopefully for the sake of the championship. We don't want to rule that out too early. It's all been very quiet so far from the Maranello team.
Now, one interesting little bit on Ferrari is that the data, particularly from days 1 and 2, suggested that on straight line speed, which is obviously their massive strength last year with that power unit, Ferrari was significantly down on their customer teams and versus their rivals. And on the timing screens in the morning before Sebastian Vettel, who had an engine failure, so that's why it was even more of a disastrous day for Ferrari, suggested that they were back up in the ballpark, but we don't know how super accurate that was, or whether it was just a one-lap thing or what's going on. So What could that be about, John? Why would the straight line speed necessarily be down at this point?
I think they probably just want a constant from the engine. They want to understand this car. They want to get the full aero mapping, understand its potential. I think they realised they went into last year not really understanding the car. Telling him Melbourne were a little bit lost with the setup, and I think that counted against them there. So they need to go into Melbourne fully understanding this car and where its sweet spot is. So to do that, you need a constant on the engine. You don't want to keep flicking about with engine mode settings and stuff. I know some, rival teams I've spoken to say, it's a, coincidence that after all these technical directives about engine modes and the two fuel flow sensors, suddenly the Ferrari is slow on the straight. But if you look at the data closely, the Ferrari customer engine teams are still well up there on the straights, are still delivering speed, and there is a gap between them. So we've not seen the full Ferrari potential yet.
So, Luke, that's encouraging for Ferrari fans for next week then, would you say?
Yeah, definitely. I think we've seen a few Ferrari fans on social media. They've been airing a few concerns about where the team stands and is it going to be another season of pain for them. But no, I think next week we'll see them take that step forward, really take the fight to Mercedes, which will be good. And, hopefully get a little bit closer at the front of the pack.
John, who else looks close behind?
Well, I think Red Bull look good. We've not seen any sensational lap times from them, but no one's really done proper qualifying runs yet, and those full low fuel sims. But speak to Max, speak to Alex Albon as well. They said the car's more connected, more together. I spoke to Alex tonight. He said after 5 laps, with that new car, he already felt a step forward over last year. So I think there's some quiet confidence there. But I think the problem last year was that the car wasn't as predictable as they wanted it in the corners. It needed a confidence level. Pierre Gasly, couldn't cope. He had the spins here in testing. So I think if the car is more stable, gives the drivers confidence, can find that sweet spot on the tyres, and hopefully they can push near the front. They just need to get a few temps behind Mercedes to put them under pressure, because once Mercedes under pressure, it's a scenario they've not had that often, and that's when they could crack.
Now, the DAS system that Jake Boxall-Legge and Tim Wright discussed at length yesterday in our video on YouTube, that still won't go away. That was still a big talking point today. You guys are both at a press conference with Michael Massey, the FIA race director, Alan Permain from Renault, and Lauren Mekies from Ferrari. What was the discussion? There's still some needle going on between the teams, but also we think that it's not going to be allowed next year anyway. Yeah,
it was interesting. I came in this morning, had a little message from someone saying, you do realise it's not allowed in 2021. Well, that's interesting. So we scanned through the regulations, and sure enough, there's been a clause added to the 2021 rules that aren't there for this year, saying you cannot do what the DAS system does, which is have a steering wheel that moves in many directions to change the toe. So the fact it's banned for 21 makes you wonder why the FIA is happy with it being around this year. So there's a bit of a controversy over that. I asked Michael Massey, can you explain why it's banned next year and allowed this year, and he wouldn't answer the question.
A bit cagey, wasn't he?
Yeah, massively
yes.
cagey. So he didn't really want to go there. He didn't want to discuss why the system's legal. But what Michael did say today is there's no doubts about safety. Some teams have said it can't be very safe having a driver pushing and pulling a wheel, but I think the FIA are clear they wouldn't accept anything that wasn't safe. But it is interesting. The other teams are quite mindful. And Alan Permain was talking a bit about it, wasn't he?
Yeah, and saying he used the words wide-eyed when he said that they first saw that system in use. And as I mentioned yesterday, I was in Red Bull when the video first emerged, and Max was saying, look at this video, like it's moving back and forth. And I think it really has captured everyone's attention, and it's really cool to just see that innovation, I think, because it's something that I think F1 is always thrived off. It's something that I think moving forward there are a few concerns about under 21, and Ross Brawn said they want to shut off some loopholes in the regulations here and there. So to have that, I think it's just really ingenious, really clever, and I think what's been nice is the whole paddock has sort of said, like, hats off to Mercedes and well done, you've done a really, really good job with that.
Excellent. Now we're going to be back here next week for the second test here in Barcelona. What are you guys expecting, and what are you both looking forward to?
The first test is always, I find the first day of the first test is always interesting, because you find the teams that are in trouble, basically. You never find the ones that are in front. You get a vague indication of who's all right and who's good. Second test is much better, because you get much closer to the final Melbourne specs. You get a better reality of where they're at, but also they've got to do qualifying simulation runs, they've got to do race distance runs, they want all this data in the bank. So finally, through all the fog and the mist of engine modes and fuel loads and stuff, you actually get a proper answer by the end of the second test, not only what the car's roughly going to be like for Melbourne, but who's really at the top.
Yeah, and I'd agree with that wholeheartedly. And I think Ferrari, that's the big thing I want to see at the next test. I want to see what Charles Leclerc, what Sebastian Vettel can really do with this new car, because at the moment Mercedes are just absolutely running away with it. And I think once the cards are down, we'll probably get a bit of a better picture of what to expect come Melbourne.
Excellent. Right, well, we'll be back here next week, starting on Wednesday, again Thursday through to Friday for the second test and the end of pre-season testing in 2020. Thank you very much for joining us and watching this video. Do check out all our stories on autosport.com and motorsport.com and subscribe to our social media channels as well as subscribe to the YouTube page. Thank you very much.